My question to you is, why is Tesla's pricing so shady? It's worse. It's
What do you
worse
mean?
than going up onto a used car dealership.
Bro, if you're trying to compare that to car dealers, I'm about to leave right now. Our friendship's
Yeah.
over, bro.
The reason I chose not to purchase from Tesla directly is because
Here's the problem with the used inventory and the way that Tesla approaches this.
For me, as somebody who's bought cars from dealers before, I just hate talking to dealers. And Brandon is a really good friend of mine, and he's a used car dealer. And shockingly, I like talking to him.
All right, so I am a used car dealer, and I have been one for about 13 years now. And recently, I've tried to buy a used Tesla from another dealer, and it was an absolute nightmare. So I had an experience where I looked at a bunch of used Teslas online. I saw the prices. I knew about what I wanted to pay. And I went to a used car dealer that I saw the price that I wanted of this used Model S Tesla. I got there, and immediately when I walked in the doors, the cost of the car went up by about $4,000. Absolute disaster. And on top of that, this Tesla only had 1% of its battery remaining. So I couldn't even test drive the car. Even if I wanted to buy it, I wouldn't be able to feel the car and know exactly what I want. So what I did was, this is the nightmare scenario. This is the one that I lived with, but I wanted to bring in some other guests today to talk about their experience actually buying vehicles. We have Farzad, who bought a brand new Tesla from Tesla. We have Hans here, who bought a used Tesla from another used car dealer, and his experience wasn't the same as mine. So I wanted to be able to talk about this and see what the different scenarios are, and you can really use this information to show you really which route that you want to take. And I know right before Farzad gets into it, I'm going to have a lot of comments saying, well, you should have just went to Tesla and bought something from their used inventory. But that's not what I did. That's not what Hans did. And the reason why I didn't is because the prices for the Tesla used inventory were ridiculously a massive amount higher than what I could get from even another used car dealer. And what I saw from what I was looking at with the Model S's is that they seem to range from $5,000 to $10,000 more with the Tesla inventory than they would from what I was looking at. But Farzad, you bought your new Tesla from Tesla. I want to hear about it.
I bought a new from Tesla. So we bought this car at the end of 2020. It's a beginning of 2021, somewhere around that time. It's a 2021 Tesla Model Y Performance. It came with FSD. Now the one interesting thing here is that I bought that car while I was an employee at Tesla, which means that I had a perk, which was I got free FSD with my car. So at the time, FSD was $15,000. This is the full self-driving option for the car that makes the car drive itself. In a lot of situations, you still have to pay attention. But as an employee, the perk we had was we would get it free. And so that's one of the biggest drivers why I ended up buying that car new. I was essentially getting a $15,000 discount by getting that free. Before that, just for the audience, we had two used Model S's. We had a 2016 and a 2017 that we both bought used, but we bought those directly from Tesla. Now, for the new car experience, what I really enjoyed outside of that price discount I got as an employee for that FSD was, for me, as somebody who's bought cars from dealers before, I just hate talking to dealers. And Brandon is a really good friend of mine, and he's a used car dealer. And shockingly, I like talking to him about stuff, probably because I'm not trying to buy a car from him, okay? But
I just sell you anything.
That's there you go. That's exactly it. I think that's what cleans up the relationship. But so that was one huge thing for me, is that I didn't have to deal with a dealer, new or used. So that is a huge selling point for me. And then the other thing is, having had experience with buying a used car from Tesla, having worked for the company, I knew that the way Tesla has their online store setup, it's very, very straightforward. You just pick the car that you want, you select your options, you click buy, you put in your deposit, and then the insurance, the registration, all the paperwork is all done online. It's very, very streamlined. And by the time I show up to the dealership to pick up the car, I'm only there for maybe 15, 20 minutes. Somebody greets me while they have me waiting for them to, to prepare the car for those 15, 20 minutes. I test drive one of their other cars, and then by the time I'm test driving that one, my car is ready to go. I jump in. It has a little tutorial in there. I follow it, and then within a few seconds to like a couple minutes, I'm gone. And so it just makes it made it very easy for me to just have this end-to-end experience. As somebody who's very fortunate to be able to afford a brand new Tesla, for me, the time saved and the lack of friction with having to haggle for a new price is a huge selling point for me. And that $15,000 discount, I mean, was a giant cherry on top. But those are all the reasons why I chose to buy new, and that was my experience.
So here's my question for you. So you are the Tesla guy here on YouTube. That's how I refer to you to all of my friends, my parents. Farzad's the Tesla guy, right? So anyway, so my question to you is, why is Tesla's pricing so shady? It's worse than going up onto a used car dealership. So when I go on a Tesla's website, they show me the price of the car. But then in the little font right below it, they say, okay, this is after your tax credit and after your estimated gas savings that you're going to get. If they can do that, why can't Toyota for their Prius? Why don't they advertise the same way? This is the amount of savings you're going to get from driving a Prius versus a Tesla. Why are they so shady? Why don't they just put the price on the freaking screen?
Because you're gonna get fleeced at the dealership. Tesla fleeces you on the website. Okay. So, but here's not to, obviously I'm going to be a fanboy here when I say this, right? But the one saving grace for Tesla is that you can there's a tab right there that says, give me the full price, right? It says, this is with included savings. You click on full price, and then you have the actual number, which is before the EV tax credit, before the gas savings. I think what they're trying to do, and it kind of works to their disadvantage in some respects, especially as they're going mass market, is I think Tesla's trying to convey to the public that, hey, the running cost of this thing is actually a lot less than you think. And the upfront price, yes, it's higher than a lot of cars, but over time you're going to save a lot of money. But it can create that confusion, like you say, that it feels like somebody's getting fleeced because they're like, "Hey, you told me it was this price, but now it's this price." It's a miscommunication that I think Tesla could definitely improve on. But I hear what you're saying. But bro, if you're trying to compare that to car dealers, I'm about to leave right now. Our friendship's over, bro.
let me just point out what the Tesla, he called himself this, so I'm gonna call it the Tesla fanboy said, and it's right there, and it's clear, and it's about that big. It's about that big, but Farzad said it's about this big. So it's
definitely about this big, bro.
Farzad, you said that the two that you owned before you bought the new one were both used, and you bought those used through Tesla's inventory, also, right?
Yes, sir.
Talk to me about that experience.
Yeah, honestly, it's the same exact one. I think, and that's why I enjoy the buying experience so much, is that you go on their website, instead of going through a sort of the new car section, which is, you select your color, you select whatever. The used one, you search through an inventory, like through the inventory that they have on the website. And so you can sort it however you want. You can sort of select what you're looking for, and then they'll show you the cars that they have available in your region for you to purchase. So that's the big difference. And I believe at the time when I bought the car, there was no used EV. Actually, I think at the time there was neither a used EV tax credit or a new EV tax credit for Teslas. And so when I bought both my used and my new ones, the price that was on the website was really the price that you were getting outside of gas savings for the new one. But for the used one, it was like, hey, I think it was 70 grand, I think it was at the time, the Model S that we bought. Both of them were around 70 grand when we bought them. And the price was there. Clicked on it. Hey, it's in this location, but we'll ship it to your nearby location in Pennsylvania at the time. And the same thing, you show up, you check out another Tesla for a few minutes, and then they stick you in the car, and then you're out of there. So very, very similar.
So here's the big problem, and me and Hans actually talked about this before he bought his Tesla. Here's the problem with the used inventory and the way that Tesla approaches this. Every used vehicle is 100% different. You're going to have different dings, scratches, different ways that people took care of the car, whether they smoked in the car or whatever. Tesla will not show you a picture of that actual car before you. Why don't they just put pictures of the cars on the website? They don't do it for their used inventory. On top of that, if you want to check out the car before you actually buy it, and it's not in the location that's close to you, you got to pay that deposit to get it shipped to that location. And if you decide you don't want that car, you don't get to keep, you lose that deposit. I think that's a massive negative for the used side of buying from Tesla. And I would like to hear what the Tesla fanboys have to say to that, because I think this is a major problem.
I think the not having the actual picture on there is a super legitimate criticism. I think they would be served well to do that, to be a little bit more transparent. From a business perspective, if I put my business hat on, you're lowering the incentive of somebody to buy the car because you're kind of exposing what could be wrong with the car. In theory, you can delete that by just having a very good pre-owned used sales system where you just leave nothing that's gray and you just say, you might have very minor dings, but you're not even going to notice it when you come in and buy the car. I think that's a very nice piece of feedback that Tesla should consider for sure. So I agree with you, Mr. Used Car Salesman.
And with the other thing on top of it is, I'll say every used car is different. But from what I'm learning by hearing you talk about Teslas and stuff like this, is that maybe every new Tesla is also different, because the panel one is going to have a 2-foot panel gap, the other one's not going to have a panel gap at all. And I'm over exaggerating, right? So build quality is an issue, and this is one thing that, as far as looking at a used car, I think it's very important to, even more so maybe on the Tesla side of things, to be able to see the car, to touch the car before you're actually buying it. So anybody is watching this, I would never recommend buying a used Tesla from Tesla's inventory unless it's at the location that's closest to you. You can go put your hands on it before you actually purchase it. But let's go to Hans now. So you bought a used Tesla from a used car dealer, and from what I understand, you had a great experience. Can you walk us through just maybe the 2-minute version of what that was like?
Yeah, well, I've kind of been casually looking for a while now, and so I have chosen for like a year not to purchase anything that I have seen, because for whatever reason, whether it was pricing on the car or was a seller that after some interactions with them felt like they were shady and I didn't want to do business with them, just a whole number of things. I've looked at purchasing directly from individuals. I've looked at purchasing, from Tesla directly. The reason I chose not to purchase from Tesla directly is because, I had a couple of criteria for my purchase, and it was that I wanted full self-driving to be included with the purchase, and I wanted it to be eligible for the used EV tax credit. So the sale price had to be below $25,000. And it was very, very difficult for me to find one that was in my area that qualified for those things. I did find one that was being sold out of Minnesota that, if I was able to pick it up in Minnesota, would have been eligible. And I would have been willing to fly up there and pick it up to do that. But Tesla's not allowed, as through their dealership restrictions in the state of Texas, for me to register it in Texas when I purchase it from a location in Minnesota. And I think that has just some funkiness to do with Texas and their relationship with Tesla specifically, since Tesla's not a registered dealer in the state. But anyways, all of that to say that I just had to filter through a long list of cars and finally landed on this 2018 Model 3 long-range dual motor that had FSD included. It had about 55,000 miles on it. It did have some minor dings and scratches and paint and blemishes and things. But the people that I was doing business with, they were very proactive, and like, before I would even ask about certain things, they would tell me this is something that, like, it doesn't, in the real world, doesn't get the 300 and some miles of range that is the EPA rated range. It really gets about 273 miles instead. And then here's all the dings and scratches that you're going to want to see. And especially when I told them that I was going to be driving multiple hours to come in and see the vehicle, then they just started like, okay, I want you to know what it is that you should expect when you arrive. And they started showing me all this stuff. And then we were able to, land on a price that I felt like was reasonable. I'm sure you would not have been okay with the price, Brandon, because A, you see what they're sell for at auction, but B, you don't assign any value to FSD, whereas I actually do assign quite a bit of value to FSD, and they sold it to me for a price that was pretty in line with what I could have purchased, based on what other used car dealers in the area are advertising their prices. I was able to purchase it with FSD for just slightly more than I would have paid for one without FSD at all. And so being able to get it with FSD at, I think 23.5 was the price that we settled on, but that was before all the fees, but also before the tax incentive. So at the end of the day, it was 21.5 for me out the door. That included all of the seller fees that they were charging and the used EV tax credit.
Do
And
you
so to be
remember
able,
what fees you had to pay?
it between taxes, it was a little over $1,000. I think it was about $1,500, and that included tax, title, and registration, and then all of their little used car dealer fees.
Wow. So you probably it's probably like a 6.99, 7.99 doc fee, I would assume.
Something like that, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So it seems like maybe the experience you had at the dealership was good, even if you got ripped off. But I'm just kidding. If you felt like you had a good experience, you paid for the experience, whatever. But it seems like the experience that you had at the dealership, you enjoyed that, but maybe the search for the Tesla was a little
Yeah, the
painful.
search was not great. Oh, and I would say just a little bit to go into, they gave me a super long test drive. He was showing me, because it's been a long time since I've only test driven Teslas. I've never owned one in the past. I've rented one a number of years back, and I drove it for a couple of days while we were in Los Angeles. So it's been a long time since I had driven one. And he introduced me to all the FSD features. He took me to a supercharger, and like I was able to verify, okay, yes, this used car is still good on the Tesla supercharger network. Cause I mean, that was one that would have made me nervous, is purchasing a car and then go to pull up to a supercharger and realize that, oh, hey, there was some sort of an issue and it got bumped off. So like those sorts of things were really great for the experience of working with AutoHub, they're north of Fort Worth. But yeah, the search process just took a long time, and I think a lot of it was really just trying to get it down to that price point that I think used car prices for Teslas have just been too high, frankly, for the past 24 months, and they're getting to much more reasonable price points now, and that added amount of competition in the used car market is what finally brought it within range of something that I was comfortable with.
Absolutely. And that's exactly the same reason why I was able to go on this experiment for this channel too. By the way, brand new channel. If you haven't already, subscribe to it, like the video, let us know how we're doing. Leave us some comments. Check out Farzad's channel. I'll put a link in the description below. Check out Hans's channel. Put a link down in the description below. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on, and hope you all have a great day.